Good morning, I'm Staff Sergeant Duffy, part of 1st Squad, 2nd Platoon, 5-20 Infantry, and today I'll be giving an unclassified informational brief on the primary platoon route plan. The purpose of this brief is to inform members of our organization on the necessary information required in order to deny enemy freedom movement within the AO and to disrupt enemy C2 capabilities. As you can see on our map here, our platoon is stationed on top of Hilltop 253, and as we move from the start point to checkpoint 1, we'll be traveling southeast at an azimuth of 108 degrees for approximately 1,000 meters. Traveling down Hilltop 253, crossing Road 13 and the river immediately following it, to arrive at a spur right below Hilltop 427. Our obstacles for the remainder of this route include dense vegetation, but specifically for this leg, the obstacles will include the linear danger area on Road 13 and the river immediately following it. Our avenues of approach will include Road 13, and our observation fields of fire are limited due to dense vegetation, but they will be good when crossing Road 13. Our cover and concealment is good except when crossing Road 13, and there will be high possibility of enemy contact due to the chance of them patrolling this road. We will be traveling in a squad com fire team wedge and traveling overwatch, but when we cross Road 13, we will switch to a squad line fire team wedge and bounding overwatch. Now as we move from checkpoint 1 to checkpoint 2, we'll be traveling north at an azimuth of 18 degrees for approximately 300 meters, traversing up a spur until right below the ridgeline of Hilltop 427. Our obstacles will include steep elevation, and the key terrain is Hilltop 427. Our observation of fields of fire is limited due to dense vegetation, which is why we'll be having good cover and concealment. There's a slight possibility of enemy contact, which is why we'll be traveling up this spur in a squad file in traveling overwatch. As we move from checkpoint 2 to checkpoint 3, we'll be traveling northeast at an azimuth of approximately 208 degrees for 400 meters, handrailing the ridgeline of Hilltop 427 until the cliff drop-off. Our obstacles will include dense vegetation, and our avenues of approach will include the ridgeline of Hilltop 427. Our key terrain is also Hilltop 427, and our observation of fields of fire is going to be limited due to dense vegetation, which is why we'll also be having good cover and concealment. There will be low possibility of enemy contact, which is why we'll be traveling in a squad, column fire team wedge, and traveling overwatch. As we move from checkpoint 3 to checkpoint 4, we'll be traveling northeast at an azimuth of 38 degrees for approximately 500 meters, handrailing the ridgeline of Hilltop 427 until a downward slope is observed. Our obstacles include the draw with steep elevation, and our avenues of approach include the ridgeline of Hilltop 427. Our key terrain is also Hilltop 427, and our observation of fields of fire is limited due to dense vegetation, which is why we'll also have good cover and concealment. There's a slight possibility of enemy contact as we are nearing the ORP and the kill zone, which is why we'll be traveling the squad column fire team wedge and traveling overwatch. As we move from checkpoint 4 to the ORP, we'll be traveling east at an azimuth of 100 degrees for approximately 500 meters, traversing up the spur of Hilltop 521. Our obstacles will include the steep elevation, and our key terrain is Hilltop 521. Our observation of fields of fire is limited due to dense vegetation, which is why there will be good cover and concealment. There's a high possibility of enemy contact in this area as we are nearing the ORP and the kill zone, which is why we'll be moving in a bounding overwatch and squad line fire team wedge. I'm now passing off to my partner.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Staff Sergeant Manny, part of 1st Squad, 2nd Platoon, 520th Infantry, and today I will be giving an unclassified information brief on the alternate platoon route plan. From start point to checkpoint 1, we'll be traveling southeast at an azimuth of 158 degrees for 600 meters, handrailing the ridgelines of Hilltops 253 and 325. Our obstacles for this route include dense vegetation, and our avenues of approach include Route 13, the ridgelines of Hilltop 253, and 325. Our key terrain here is Hilltop 325 right here, and our observations and fields of fire are limited because of the dense vegetation along our route. We have good cover and concealment because of this dense vegetation. However, there is a slight possibility of enemy contact being so close to Road 13 right here. We'll be traveling overwatch and squad column fire team wedge. Next, the next section of our route will be from checkpoint 1 to checkpoint 2. We'll be traveling directly east at an azimuth of 98 degrees for 800 meters, crossing Road 13 right here, and traversing up the spur of Hilltop 369. Our obstacles here include the linear danger area the river, the steep elevation on the spur, and the dense vegetation. For the remainder of this route, an obstacle that will be consistent throughout will be the dense vegetation. Our key terrain here will include Hilltop 369, and our observations and fields of fire are limited because of this dense vegetation, except when crossing the linear danger area because it's out in the open. There's good covering concealment, except while crossing the linear danger area because it is out in the open. There's a high possibility of enemy contact because the enemy will be patrolling Route 13 right here. And because this will be in traveling overwatch and squad column fire team wedge up until the road, but when we're crossing the road, we'll be in bounding overwatch and squad line fire team wedge. From checkpoint 2 to checkpoint 3, we'll be traveling northeast at an azimuth of 58 degrees, handrailing the ridge line of Hilltop 369 right here. Our obstacles still include dense vegetation, and our avenues of approach include the ridge line of Hilltop 369. Our key terrain is also Hilltop 369. Our observations and fields of fire are limited because of the dense vegetation, but because of this, we'll have good cover and concealment along this section of the route. There's a low possibility of enemy contact in this area, and as a result, we'll be traveling overwatch and squad column fire team wedge. From checkpoint 3 to checkpoint 4, we'll be traveling northeast at an azimuth of 78 degrees for 400 meters, handrailing the ridge lines of Hilltops 369 and 400, and crossing over a saddle between the two. Our obstacles include dense vegetation, and our avenues of approach are the ridge lines of Hilltop 400 right here. Our key terrain also includes Hilltop 400. Our observations and fields of fire are limited because of the dense vegetation, but because of this, we'll have good cover and concealment. There's a slight possibility of enemy contact, and we'll be traveling overwatch squad column fire team wedge. From checkpoint 4 to ORP, we'll be traveling northeast at an azimuth of 25 degrees for 700 meters, handrailing the ridge lines of Hilltops 436 and 521 until the top of Hilltop 521. Our avenues of approach are the ridge lines of Hilltops 436 and 521. Our key terrain includes Hilltops 436 and 521 right here. Our observations and fields of fire are limited because of the dense vegetation, and because of this, we'll also continue to have good cover and concealment along here. There's a high possibility of enemy contact due to us nearing the ORP and the kill zone, and we'll be traveling and bounding overwatch and squad line fire team wedge. Pending any questions, this concludes our informational route plan brief. Thank you everyone for your attentiveness.